How did that one kid at your school die? Dengue fever. She had gone back to her family home in the Philippines over summer holidays and got really sick. Her last MySpace post was, "I'm going to die with this fever," and she was dead less than 24 hours later. Next story. We had a lot of deaths at my school, two that stick out. One kid in my class took his own life when he got a D in math class. We were in middle school. He did it at home. Another kid went into surgery for a football injury, had an allergic reaction, and died. Next story. Threw a can of pressurized/aerosolized bug spray in a campfire. It blew up and burnt him severely. Significant burns to the esophagus/lungs. Took him 10 or so days to die in the hospital. Terrible, terrible thing, I imagine. Next story. Kid who used to bully me a bit. Wasn't overall a real bad kid, but the week before he'd grabbed my collarbone and dragged me around the quad by it like it was a handle. It was still sore when he ran out in front of a car on a crossing and spent a week or so in a coma before dying. We were only about 7 or 8, but when they went around the class and tried to get us to say our favorite memory of him, I couldn't come up with anything. I just said he used to bully me, but I didn't want him to die. Everyone looked at me like I was a freaking monster, and the teacher got flustered and moved on. I probably couldn't express it outwardly if I were the teacher in this case, but I do feel like that's a pretty mature stance for a child to take. Like, oh, this person was pretty bad to you, and yet you still don't want him to die. Like, you're not celebrating his death, so I don't know why people thought you were a monster. I mean, they're kids, right? So concepts of morality are pretty underbaked at that point. But still, as a teacher, I would silently applaud you for that, I think. That's a very fair response. Next story. Our school used to have early morning and evening swimming practice for the school swimming team members. When I say early morning, I'm talking 4 to 5 a.m. Afraid of punishments, the girls would hurry out of their dorms to the pool quick. One day, one girl, we still aren't sure if she was sleepy or wanting to end her own life, jumped from the topmost diving board straight into an empty pool. The water had been drained the night prior. Everyone was left wondering if she thought there was water or if she just jumped. Next story. Collapsed and died during a PE lesson due to an undiagnosed heart issue. Very surprising as they were a keen runner. The PE teacher who tried to revive them went on sick leave not long after, suffering from PTSD and cancer, apparently. Next story. One burned to death after finding some paint thinners in an industrial skip dumpster, put a match to a 5-liter drum, and boom. Took him about a week for him to die of his burns. Think about him every Halloween when the accident happened. Next story. He loved to tool around town on his motor scooter while listening to his Walkman. A car didn't notice him until too late, and he didn't hear the car horn. He was hit and died on the scene. Next story. She wasn't one of the popular kids. She disappeared one summer day. A search turned up nothing. A couple of months later, a farmer harvesting his field found her. She took a bottle of sleeping pills, used a backpack as a pillow, and went to sleep watching the sky. Next story. He was my brother. He was given someone else's prescription morphine. He wasn't told the dangers or how many was safe to take. He took 4. We found him on Thanksgiving morning. He was in a coma until he died on December 6th, 1996. It destroyed my family. Mom took her own life in 98. Dad drank and smoked himself to death in 19. My life completely derailed for a while, but I'm doing okay now. Next story. Undiagnosed brain aneurysm that ruptured while she was riding the school bus in 8th grade. The cemetery that she was buried in was across the street from the high school, so we visited her grave often. I wasn't on the bus that day, but the stories of the chaos that ensued that day were heartbreaking to hear from the students who were there. Next story. There was a drunk driver that hit a vehicle that had 5 of my football teammates in high school in it. 4 of them passed away right away, and the 5th barely survived and was in the hospital for months. That rocked our community to the core. Still think about them, and to this day I'd rather fight someone for their keys trying to drive home drunk than let them drive home. I personally think that should be everyone's stance on drunk driving to begin with. Completely senseless, needless danger for so many people, everyone on the road at the time. The amount of things that could potentially go wrong are astronomical, and the amount of things that could go right are pretty small. So really it's just not worth the risk. Next story. 1st grade. Kid from my class passed away in a house fire. I remember asking my teacher where he was after he hadn't been in class for a week. She took me out in the hall and told me he'd gone to heaven. When I told my mom about it after school, she asked for the boy's name, and I told her. Turns out she had read how he died in the newspaper. I lost it after that. Boo-hooed for hours. I wasn't super close to the kid, but we played together at recess occasionally, and I considered everyone in my classroom as my friend. Took me me a while to get over it. I kept thinking over and over how horrible of a death that must have been. Next story. She had an asthma attack on a school-sponsored ice skating outing, and the ambulance couldn't get her to the county hospital on time. She was already blue with bright red, panicking eyes when they took her away. The kicker was that we were told to leave everything at school, so if we fell on the ice, the things in our pockets wouldn't cause injury. She left her inhaler behind. Okay, so surely there's some middle ground, right? Someone can hold on to the things that are important, like medicine perhaps. Not just leave everything at school, guys. Surely the two states of being are not just at school and in pocket. They can be somewhere else. Next story. Our school guidance counselor was married to a very wealthy guy. They had a son, Brett, who was spoiled, good-looking, and popular. Maybe a little entitled and a bit of a jerk, but far less than you'd expect. Overall, a decent dude. Brett started dating this girl who was quote-unquote poor. Her family shared a house with 3 other families so they could send their kids to this school district. Brett's mom did not approve at all. She wasn't shy about saying so either. She loathed this girl, and the longer Brett kept seeing her, the angrier she got. Then Brett and the girl decided to attend the same university. The mom was furious. Halfway through senior year, before any of it could really come to a head, Brett died in a car accident. Never saw the mom again, never saw the girl again. They quit and switched schools respectively. It was such an unexpectedly tragic end to the silly soap opera we'd all been following. Anytime I think about Brett, I think about how much his mom must regret that she spent those last few months of his life bitterly fighting him over something as stupid as loving a girl whose parents were in the wrong tax bracket. Next story. Leukemia. He was 17 as it came back. He looked awful, just skins and bones, but still cheered everyone on. Guys, it'll be all good again. 2 months later, he was dead. I'll never forget how his mother stroked his hair while he laid in the casket, as if he was just asleep. His huge dad, military guy, broke down crying. 22 years later, and it still haunts me. I miss him. Next story. A girl who took her own life. She was a kind, beautiful, popular girl. Everyone loved her, and no one had any idea she was struggling. I only knew her because her brother used to bully me on the school bus. But she was a sweetheart. I remember the teachers crying that day. Next story. Brain cancer. I don't even know how to describe this girl. Bear in mind, this was in the 80s. She was as girly as they come and could still hang with the dudes. She was everyone's friend, and one day, she disappeared. We later found out she had brain cancer, but back then we never thought of the word terminal. Then, suddenly after a year, she came back in a terrible wig. We all knew it was a bad wig, but it made her feel more human. We were just happy to have her back. Easily 6 months after she came back to school, she was gone. I was pallbearer at her funeral. Worst day of my life. Next story. His father strangled him to death with his own pajamas while he was sleeping. The father had some mental health issues, and in a psychotic episode, he murdered his own son. When he realized what he had done, he ran down the street shouting that he had just ended his son. He went to prison and took his own life in there. Next story. Bit of a loophole here. The kid was my brother. He fell face first into some 6 inches of rebar. It pushed past his left eye, penetrated his brain, and came to a stop in the back of his skull on the right. His heart had stopped when his mum found him, pulled him off, and called an ambulance. Ambulance didn't believe what had happened. It was 1990 because there was no visible trauma after the eye went back into place. They managed to get his heart going again as well. His heart stopped another 3 times in the hospital. Had to fly an army surgeon over from Northern Ireland who specialized in gunshots to the head to do the brain surgery. My brother lived and is going to be 40 next year. I am so glad it isn't all awful in this thread. Like, I know the question of the thread is just going to be all sad, but I am very glad this one decided to cheat. I was getting a little depressed after, 5 pages of this now? Yeesh. Next story. I grew up in rural Germany. Almost half of my graduation class, 20 people, are dead now that I'm 37. A fair few of them due to alcohol and or other drugs and operating a motor vehicle. The last one was a woman who died because she got sepsis during a water birth without proper supervision. One of them got cancer and decided not to treat it. Next story. There were 2 identical twins in my high school. Everyone knew them because they were always together and both had heterochromia, just inversed. and that's how we could tell which one was which. One day I came to school to be told that one of them just suddenly died while playing football in front of the other. The second didn't come to school for a while. I can only imagine how it must feel to see your brother drop dead in front of you. Next story. I studied with a kid who was born HIV positive with developed AIDS due to his parents being drug users. During the last 3 years of high school, he did 3 surgeries and removed almost 40% of his lungs. As you can imagine, a lot of people bullied him. Mind me, he wasn't easy to deal with either. He grew up in a foster home and was very socially inept. But me and my group of friends always tried to let him fit in as much as we could. By 2009, we all graduated, and we didn't hear from him anymore aside from casual gossips and sightings in the streets, until 2017 arrived. A friend of mine was volunteering in an NGO that worked with homeless people and found him in one of the lines for food. By that time, he was living in the streets for a long time and not much could be done. As a lot of us still had contact with each other, one day we gathered donations and gave him everything he would need to survive for a long time. He was very thankful and told me more about his life, how the foster care let him go after he was 18, etc. Not even 2 days later, another volunteer called my friend to say that this guy got into a fight in the shelter and was expelled. As he was leaving the building, he fell and hit his head on the curb, dying instantly. Next story. Leukemia, weeks from being 12. I had known him for 3 years. I was always sitting next to him because I never got sick and was adamant about keeping my hands and stuff clean, so our teacher sat me next to him. I was 11 when they sent all of us home with a sealed note for our parents. Somehow, I knew what it said, so I just handed it to my mother and went off to watch TV. I still think about him. I think 11-year-old me refused to acknowledge that he was gone. I was the only one in our year that didn't go to his funeral. I'll forever regret that. I wish OP said why they didn't go to the funeral. Like, was it the overlapping date with something extremely important, or was it just way too close to home because he sat right next to him? I think that'd be fair for an 11-year-old, but yeah. Going, in hindsight, is probably the, correct decision. But when you're 11, I'm sure your whole brain is just like, I do not want to feel these big emotions. Please, I want to stay home and watch something on TV. So I hope OP doesn't feel too bad about it. Next story. He was walking home from a poker night at a friend's. Was found floating in the river the next morning. No one knows what happened. Was he drunk and slipped down into the water? Was he attacked because he was by himself? Did he do it to himself? He was an only child, and no one had a bad thing to say about him. Shocked us all to the core. Next story. One kid was bullied so much that he took his own life, and the school knew about it and did nothing. Everyone in the school was begging the head teacher to expel the bully. The police were on site twice a week as well. The bully's parents always threatened legal action and physical violence if the school did anything. Victim eventually took his own life, but he did it at a building site since the bully's dad was working on it. There was a note detailing everything that had happened. Bully was finally expelled and arrested. Bully's family house was attacked, family cars were smashed up, dad was beaten the crap out of any time anyone saw him in town. Bully and his family had to leave the county despite trying to stay because rather than own up and apologizing for being the scum they were, they doubled down on it and threatened to burn down the school, beat up teachers, end the parents of other kids. Anyway, vigilante justice at its best. Oh, well, now I feel like an idiot. I was like, oh man, attacking their house, vandalizing their cars, beating up the dad, this seems really dramatic. No, I think it was fair, actually. My bad. Next story. A Muslim kid at a Christian school took his own life. Parents enrolled him because they wanted a religious environment, but there weren't any Muslim schools. The school and police did a full investigation to see if there was any bullying or evidence of hate crimes against him, but didn't find anything. Seems the kid was just unhappy. The dean held an assembly to talk about what happened and to let everyone know about available therapy counselors if anyone needed it. He apologized for failing to create an emotionally safe enough campus and for allowing a child to be so unhappy under his watch. He had to stop halfway through his speech because he was crying so much, and the assistant dean had to finish the assembly. All classes were cancelled for the rest of the week, and the school brought in therapy dogs to sit in the commons for people to pet. That is, admittedly, way more tact and respect than I expected from a school administration. Actually taking responsibility for that kind of thing is something most administrations would do anything to avoid, it seems. It's terrible that that kid was so unhappy, for whatever reason it was. and I'm glad that the dean took actual action to maybe make it a nicer place in the future. And it's even fully possible that there wasn't even anything wrong with the school to begin with. It's impossible to know someone's individual circumstances, really. Next story. Got drunk and dove headfirst into shallow water. He got a huge candlelight vigil on the football field and a giant bulletin board covered in paper for people to sign. A month or so earlier, a kid took his own life due to bullying, and all he got was a small moment of silence during the morning announcements. Nothing about the actual bullying that led to it, of course, but that kid wasn't the MVP on the JV football team, so whatever, I guess. At least according to the principal, who had a son on the varsity football team. See, now that's more like what I expect. I'm definitely not saying it should be like that, but it is just more par for the course in my mind. Next story. Where to start? The joke is that my school is a final destination sort of thing. I had a graduating class over 700 and nearly 300 of us are gone or were gone prior to graduation. There was a kid who was ended execution style in the middle of the street after protecting his younger brother from getting beat up. That's a cold case that still hasn't been solved. There was a group of kids who died in a house fire. One dude who never woke up from a nap. They had a brain injury nobody knew about. There was my best friend who died from diabetic complications. He went to take a nap and, say it with me, never woke up. Several car accidents, a couple of drug overdoses. Oh, and there was a girl who took her own life in the auditorium practicing the school play one year. Next story. Teacher fell down a flight of stairs and hit his head on the way down. He passed away about a week later. About a month leading up to it, he was complaining about memory issues and would get extremely distracted during class. Like he spent half a lesson talking about Christmas light bulbs in an algebra class. Last lesson, he told us how his wife was getting worried and wanted him to see a doctor. Looking back, I think it was the beginning of dementia. Next story. A cheerleader ended by a friend. The new police force didn't know what they were doing. They brought in the FBI. It was the early 80s. They, cops, media, students, and teachers, thought it was an outcast, or, in my case, a punk rocker. Two of us went through hell, being accused and harassed for months. Her family, of course, very upset. It turned out to be someone in her own group who did it. Both myself and the other accused girl ended up leaving the school for good. Next story. Someone in my year level had an acting career going that got cut short by their death. Towards the end of school, they tripped and fell in front of a train. At the next TV awards in our country, they got a mention on the memorials. A plaque was also put up in our primary school for them. I didn't know them super well, but had some conversations with them before they got into acting during primary school and when they returned during high school. Next story. Warning, graphic description. Middle school, 8th grade. Her mom's boyfriend tied her, her siblings, and mom up in the basement and beat them to death with a pole. One person managed to escape, which was her aunt, but by the time her aunt got the police, they were all dead, and the person who did it tried to flee. He was caught. No kid or parent deserves that kind of death. Next story. Back in high school in the 90s, there was a rampant wave of kidnappings of Filipino Chinese citizens in the capital. My classmates literally stopped coming to school. Either their families went into hiding out of fear, migrating to the US or Canada, or worse, got kidnapped themselves. We didn't really know what was happening and the schools weren't saying anything. Dismissals were done in almost military fashion and there was police presence everywhere. Despite all these efforts, some of the students who disappeared, we would eventually discover, were still kidnapped. Even with their families paying ransom, they were murdered, and their bodies were found in the field in a province outside the capital. Our entire school was distraught, even if we didn't know them personally. Something as tragic and gruesome as that rattles you. Next story. I hated this kid. He bullied me regularly. Got a hold of a note I wrote for a girl and read it to everyone. Nobody seemed to care though, which was cool. When he ended his life, I wasn't bitter. I felt genuinely bad. A lot of people I liked talking to liked him. That same week, I went to our local youth group and someone had asked the pastor to say a prayer for him. And he responded that because the kid ended his life, he was burning in hell for all eternity. I firmly believe that this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I mostly went to that youth group because they had it so you could hang out for a while and then bail when the service started, but stayed when they did the service first. After the pastor said that, I left. If anyone should be burning in hell, it's the pastor. Next story. Elementary school, one of my classmates and her family were killed via murder, self-unaliving by their father. They planted a tree out front in memorial, and I'm pretty sure the last time I went by the school they had ripped it up to put in a car pickup and drop-off loop. Sad reminder of how short people's memories can be. In high school, a couple of guys died of heart issues, I'm pretty sure. They were both very big boys. A couple ODs not long after high school as well. Unfortunately, not just one. Next story. This was tough. I grew up in California, so the schools were all outside, and there would be heavy-duty concrete benches dotted around the campus. In the 6th grade, a group of boys would jump from bench to bench in some sort of game. Well, one kid slipped and hit his windpipe directly on the corner of the bench. I never actually knew the kid, but the whole community was devastated. Next story. I remember this kid from high school who died at his first job/work site, was reportedly left unsupervised working with a rock crusher machine, and apparently his clothing got caught and he was sucked into the machine and crushed to death. Sounded like a brutal way to die. He was only 18. Couldn't believe it when I heard the news. Seemed like an intelligent guy. There was another guy from high school who decided to go climbing onto roofs of businesses alone after a night out drinking. I suspect they might have been trying to break and enter. They slipped and fell and were found dead in an alleyway below. Next story. Stepdad murdered the whole family. Mom was getting beat. 3 kids stepped in to help. One by one, he threw them all down cement stairs and stabbed one, like 8th grade. Another got hit by a school bus in 11th, both in my grade. Next story. I lived near and shared a bus with this one girl for many years when I was a kid. She was a year older than myself, so there were a few years where we didn't see each other, but we remained friendly acquaintances and eventually friends over the years. We hung out a few times in middle school and high school in groups, but I certainly don't claim to be one of her closest friends or anything. She was, in a word, amazing. At the risk of putting her on a pedestal, she was like a TV character in a larger-than-life way. Beautiful, funny, talented. She sang solos at many school concerts and was a talented musician as well. She was intelligent and apparently a very good student. On paper and in outward presentation to the world, she was perfect. In truly tragic fashion, her sister reportedly found her in a tree in the woods near her house one autumn day of her junior year. All evidence pointed towards her doing it herself. I won't speculate as to what personal demons she was struggling with, as I didn't know her that well, but suffice it to say she wasn't happy beneath her polished public image. It makes me sad to think of her grappling with severe depression, as revealed by her sister after the fact, among whatever other private struggles she had. I was a sophomore and she was a junior, and the last time I saw her was on the bus going home. Then the news exploded on our social media. Skype was a big thing at the time. The entire junior class had a mass ceremony to honor her in the parking lot behind the high school. They all organized a walkout and just went outside together to mourn. We could look out at them through the classroom windows and you could see the pain and the shock, even from a distance. At her wake, her parents made a tribute video of sorts, showing her life from childhood pictures and videos, showcasing as she grew into the talented young woman she was. It ended with a video of her singing a solo at some school concert the former year. It was so depressingly beautiful. We all cried. Not to get into a conversation about people taking their own lives, but she changed the way I look at it, and I will never forget her. Rest in peace, friend. It is unfortunately just a fact that there is no way you can know what someone's dealing with. Even if OP was one of their closest friends, people who are suffering from severe depression and all that are usually pretty good at hiding it. I don't really know what the lesson there is. I think it's just be kind to people. Never assume that someone truly has it made. You can never know that for sure. Next story. He was 13 and he took his own life because of a 2-day exclusion from school. He was a troubled kid who was angry and he was causing havoc every day. But my mom told me he was growing up in an abusive family. Sometimes his father was so drunk he'd forget to pick his kid up after school or drop him off at 5 a.m. in the cold winter. School started at 8. So my mom took him in our car so he could get some shelter. He was nice to me because of this, as in, he wasn't actively bullying me. He was so afraid his father would whoop his butt because of the school suspension that he just took his own life when he came home. I was skiing with relatives when he passed away, as it was the first day of winter holidays. It felt surreal. Me, skiing, and this little fella being dead, probably feeling lonely and vulnerable at the very end of his life. I think about him pretty often, even if we weren't that close, because I imagine the what if. He would be 30, might have a family of his own and everything, but he'll just forever be a neglected 13-year-old boy. Next story. Which one? One took his own life with bed sheets in juvenile detention. One was accidentally shot by his best friend while playing with guns. One took his own life by falling from the tallest tree at school, so it took a crew to come and bring him down. And one died by running a 3-wheeler into a barbed wire fence and bleeding out. Next story. A boy fell from the top floor of a double-decker bus while it was taking him to school, was fatally injured and died that night. If I recall correctly, there was some stupid fight over nothing and he ended up getting pushed through a window. The only other one was even sadder somehow. 17-year-old girl, fit, healthy, just died in her sleep. No known pre-existing conditions. She was super nice and had an incredible future ahead of her. Rest in peace, Nina. Next story. The kid was my girlfriend. She remained 20 forever. Leukemia. Childhood best friend turned lovers. Good days. It's been 4 years, but it felt like freaking yesterday. The other was our batchmate. Car crash on the day of our SHS graduation. The other, who had a rare type of cerebral palsy where patients usually only survive till 18, died at 20. Not because of her condition either, due to COVID. Next story. She took her own life because she got pregnant and was a young drug addict. She was 14. Learned about her passing 3 years later. We used to be friends in elementary. Rest in peace, Alyssa. Pretty, wavy-haired, cussing blonde, gave absolutely no craps. You were so freaking funny, and you made my crappy winter class memorable in that dorm full of spoiled brats. Thanks for not being one of my bullies back then. Definitely left a little note on her tribute website page. Actually found the obituary and felt my heart wreck. I'm 20 and still think about her from time to time, especially when taking your own life is talked about. I attempted to in my life, but failed. She just didn't back then. It's that close. Next story. Autoerotic asphyxiation. Yeah. Seriously. The guy was sort of an outcast. He was always acting out for attention because he had a crappy home life. So he was one of those dudes 99% of the students only paid attention to when he was doing something funny. I think there were maybe 8 or 9 of us who actually viewed him as a friend. When he died, the students all staged a walkout when they told us we couldn't have the day off to attend his funeral. That 99% of the student body overflowed the funeral home, and I had to sit and watch a bunch of people who never gave this kid the time of day claim how great of a friend he was. At the end of the service, a girl who he had dated for like 5 days literally elbowed his grieving grandmother aside to get up and cry about how much she loved him. Everyone acted like they loved him and that he was a loving, kind, intelligent angel. He was killing time until he could drop out and get the hell away from all of them. My last memories of him the week before his death was him tricking a kid into eating his own scab by claiming it was beef jerky, and him tapping me on the shoulder, so I turned around and saw his nutsack stretched out under his shorts with a smiley face drawn on it. He was a burnout who was most likely on his way to a life of endless struggling and drug addiction. But all of a sudden, everyone was acting like the world lost one of the most promising, beautiful minds it had ever known. A few days later, I watched Robin Williams' film Man of the Year, and man, that was a difficult watch, seeing damn near that exact scenario play out on screen. Rest in peace, Moses. You were a screwed up, crazy mother effer. But you were genuinely a good person trying your best with the crap hand you were dealt. Next story. Teacher here. First student had a heart defect. What I heard from staff is that he got out of bed, told his mom he wasn't feeling well, and collapsed. It was his senior year. Second student was sitting in a car late at night. According to police, he was approached by someone and shot to death while sitting in the vehicle. He was 17, I believe. Both kids were awesome, and I think of them often. Rest in peace, Quan. Rest in peace, Johnny. Next story. I've got 2. Schools in SoCal started shutting down early on days that were really hot and or had bad smog. There was no warning or anything, they just sent the kids home. He went home with some friends and got his dad's handgun. He removed the magazine and pointed the gun at his friends. They understandably got upset. He said, "It's not loaded," placed it to his temple, and fired the chambered round. After I graduated, my brother's friends invited him to a party. He couldn't go for some reason, probably grounded knowing him. The friends were coming home from the party when we were T-boned at an intersection by a guy street racing. The guy was driving a souped-up Camaro with a racing seat and 5-point harness. He survived. The 4 kids in the compact economy car with regular seat belts all died. Secure your firearms. And if you want to race, find a track. Street racing is so dumb, man. Sure, it seems kind of fun, but it is completely ignoring the fact that the people who are most at risk from it aren't you. You're just basically saying screw everyone else on the road. I don't know, man. Doesn't seem super fair to me. Next story. She died in heart surgery. The poor girl spent her final day in school telling her friends she knew she would die. No doubt in her mind, she knew. Our year was called into an assembly the next morning to confirm she passed away. She had been getting treatments and surgeries on her heart since she was very young, and unfortunately they couldn't save her that time. She was no older than 14 at a stretch. As far as I remember, she always loved dance and acting and wanted to pursue it as an adult. Next story. He got jumped by 3 men and a woman after a house party they and myself had all been at earlier in the night. They caught him walking home alone, beat the crap out of him, and left him unconscious across a set of train tracks. It was common knowledge in my city what had happened. Police did nothing. It took them 10 years to follow up, with all of them eventually being charged for murder. The trial was a lot of half-truths and outright lies by some fairly shady local characters. I'd been good friends with one of the witnesses for the accused, until he broke into mine and my pregnant girlfriend's apartment and robbed us while we were at work. If I recall correctly, only one person was convicted, and it was for a lesser charge. It was a total cluster F from the get-go, and an absolute travesty. My heart breaks for his mother, who championed his cause for over a decade. I knew him casually. Really freaking nice dude. A really horrific tragedy. I hope you're resting easy, Aaron. Next story. Driving while messing with his radio and careened off the road into a tree. One of the most popular guys in school. We worked as lifeguards together at our local pool, so I knew the guy personally. Always sure of himself, very confident but arrogant. He always bragged about the stereo he had his dad get him for his truck, and he always had it blaring as he drove away from the pool. He was coming home from one of his friends' parties over the weekend at 1 a.m. He was going 20 over the limit in some of the curviest roads in our country. Very little suffering for an otherwise horrendous accident. Coroner found he had died on impact. His radio was still blaring when the police and paramedics got to him. Friend of the policeman on duty said they had to disconnect the battery just to turn the thing off. I don't know if I could ever say I was close to him. Hard to even remember his face now. But I still get some stomach curls when a car passes with their radio blaring. All that life for something so inconsequential. But I guess he died enjoying a thing he loved. A silver lining, I suppose. Next story. I'm a high school teacher. We had someone take their own lives 1.5 years ago. She was a new girl and she hadn't made many friends or connections yet. I don't know the details since I was one of the adults, and the fact that the whole school moved on and acted like nothing happened within 2 days hurt in a way I couldn't explain. Nobody changed. There was no support between students. Faculty pretended that it hadn't happened. I get that nobody really knew her that much, but how do you not look at the elephant in the room here? Someone taking their own life isn't supposed to just be something that happens in day-to-day life. That has stuck with me more than the one kid who died in my graduating class. Drunk driver hit and killed her, in case you guys care. Next story. The town I'm from shuts down on Halloween, and the entire town becomes teen vandal zone, where the town's rich teens destroy property, vehicles, toilet paper, homes, fight people. And no, I'm not joking, it's a thing. When I was in high school, parents supplied alcohol to local teens for a Halloween night party. I was invited, but my parents refused to let me go. In fact, I sat at our kitchen window and watched as my friend's vehicle drove by honking. 2 hours later, my parents' police scanner was going wild. A wreck. DUI. Teens killed. 2 years later, my mom's best friend died in an accident where her DD was unknowingly under the influence. A year after that, my cousin's husband was struck and killed by a drunk driver. She was 8 months pregnant. I don't drink alcohol. Alcohol kills. I don't know if it's alcohol to blame here. I gotta be honest. There are plenty of people who drink and don't do garbage like this. Like, it's really not hard. I'm just, I don't know, so disappointed when I hear things like this. I know I rant about drunk driving a lot though, so moving on. Next story. One was killed from blood loss after an escalator accident when we were in year 1. We were good friends briefly, then he disappeared, and my parents wouldn't tell me what happened for quite a while. I lose my crap at my son when he's running and playing on escalators now, and everyone in the shopping center thinks I'm a lunatic. Another was shot by his older brother in year 6. Apparently they were having an argument over whose house they were going to break into that night. Another was huffing spray paint and had a seizure, also in year 6. I didn't know them very well. Another was suffocated with car fumes intentionally in year 10. Another drank weed killer intentionally in year 12. He was suffering for a few days before succumbing. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. Next story. Hunting accident. He was turkey hunting the morning after being suspended from school. The story was that he was hiding in a bush doing a turkey call and another hunter just blasted the bush with his rifle, not knowing it wasn't a turkey. Guy was still alive, but he left him there to die. He bled out for hours before succumbing. His brother and dad found him about an hour after he finally died. I heard from others who knew the hunter in question, and that my classmate had accidentally came upon something he shouldn't have seen, and that there had been another person there to witness it. The hunter only got hit with a misdemeanor, as that was all they could charge him with. The governor signed a bill that makes not rendering aid in a hunting accident a felony. Signed it right in front of us students at our high school. Real sad crap. Last time I saw his parents' business, there was a large portrait of my classmate on the side of their trailer. Next story. 2 died in a car accident. 1 was shot as some part of stupid gang violence. 1 took his own life a couple of weeks before graduation, and that was just in high school. In middle school, 1 kid died from huffing Freon from an AC unit, and the friends who had told him about it were in my homeroom class. When the principal announced it over the intercom, we all already knew it had been on the news the previous night. The way those poor kids reacted had stuck with me forever. Next story. My school felt like it was cursed. My freshman year, a senior died of a caffeine overdose, and a junior took his own life. Fast forward a few years and we thought we'd gotten the death past us. Then, my graduating year, a sophomore died in a car accident after getting his license and first car. Then, after I graduated, 2 more the next year also died in car accidents. All single car crashes from driving recklessly. Tragedy can happen at any point to anyone. Next story. The first kid death in my life was a fellow 10-year-old. Vicky Carter. One morning, she was a passenger in a car with her mom on a highway trip to a destination 2 hours away. They both died in a head-on collision after someone crossed the center line. Just days before, I had crawled down partially into a curb drain after she asked me to retrieve her badminton birdie. A year later, a male friend was visiting family in New York during summer vacation. He was taking a bath with a plugged-in radio too close to the tub, and it fell in. I cannot believe people have plugged in appliances or electronics right next to their tub. Are you kidding me? Was it like teetering on the edge of the tub? That's an insane place for something electronic to be. Obviously, huge tragedy, but that is just absurd. Anyway, that's the last story for today. This was a pretty dark thread, so, as I like to recommend, do something you like doing. Talk to some people you like, have some fun, whatever, just chill out and have a good time for a bit. For now, though, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.